Male, and what else?
I believe that intersex is also acknowledged, but
Intersex.
again, I'm not a doctor here. What I can
And
say
what does intersex mean?
is that there's a difference between sex and gender, and I think in these conversations we're conflating the two.
Well, but I want to start with sex, okay? There's male, there's female. When a baby's born, before the baby has had time to...
What happens when common sense meets woke ideology in a Senate hearing? You get one of the most revealing exchanges we've seen in Washington lately. Senator John Kennedy asking a simple question that exposes just how far removed from reality some activists have become. Before we dive in, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss when we call out the madness and defend truth, freedom, and logic.
Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to all of our witnesses here today. Ms. Robinson, I want to follow up by trying to understand your answer to one of Senator Cruz's questions, and this is really a question, not a suggestion. Do I understand your position to be that there are two sexes, but there can be more than two genders?
I wouldn't even say two, and we've got Dr. Lopez here as well, but there's also the definition of intersex. I think that often in these conversations we're conflating sex and gender, and I do want to affirm here that trans women are women. That is their gender.
Okay, but I'm trying to understand. Do you make a distinction between sex and gender?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Explain that. Just, do you think there are more than two sexes?
I believe that there's a definition for intersex as well that I want to acknowledge. But sex is assigned at birth.
I'm just trying to understand. I'm thoroughly confused. So you're born, I'm talking about biology, male, female, and what else?
I believe that intersex is also acknowledged, but again, I'm not a doctor here. What I can
say... And what does intersex mean?
Is that there's a difference between sex and gender, and I think in these conversations we're conflating the two.
Well, but I want to start with sex, okay? There's male, there's female. When a baby's born, before the baby has had time to even have a sense of self, there's male, female, and intersex. There's a third sex.
I believe that is true, but I would defer to Dr. Lopez as I'm not a physician.
Okay. And how many genders are there?
I think the gender is expansive, and the definitions are always growing. Today I can tell you, I talk to young people that talk about non-binary as...
More than five?
I think the gender is not a binary, is what I'm trying to say.
But are there more than five genders? I'm just trying to understand. Are there more than five genders?
Well, I think that there was a time where women wearing pants didn't feel like it was appropriate for their gender, and yet I'm wearing pants today. I think that there are ways that we express our gender that are expansive.
Are there more than five?
I wouldn't subject myself to naming how many genders there are, but what I can say is that gender is a reflection.
Number?
Excuse me?
There's an infinite number of genders?
I think depending on your culture, there are a lot of different genders that exist. And I can also say that it's a term that's evolving. If you look at young people today, they really don't lean into the binary of only woman and man. So I think that it's incumbent upon us not to legislate on this, but create space for them to explore what their identities are, what their gender identities are.
Let's get back to athletics. I think I understand what you're saying. There are three sexes: male, female, and intersex.
I believe that to be true, but again, I'm not a physician.
And there are an infinite number of genders, because gender is a mental state.
Gender is about expression, and I think that there are a variety of ways that you can express your gender.
Okay, so there's infinite number. All right, let's go back to the biology. Male, female, boy, girl, okay? Biologically, do males have an advantage over females biologically in sports?
Again, I'm not a physician, and I can't speak to that.
What's your real-world experience?
It depends. I mean, there are some people who are born male that I'm faster than if I were to sprint against them, and some that I'm not. Some males
So
that are
you don't
taller than
believe
some
that-
women,
you
and
don't
some that are
believe
shorter.
that a biological male has a physical advantage in sports over a biological female?
Not as a definitive statement.
Give me an example. Well, no, I don't think. How many female members of the NBA do you see?
Well, I can say that, there's been this news article about men that think that they could beat Serena Williams in tennis, right? That they think that they could actually score a point on her. And it's just not the case. She is stronger than that.
What's your experience, Ben? Male, female?
Both Serena and Venus lost to the 203rd ranked male tennis player, which they're phenoms for women. My experience, my husband, he swam at University of Kentucky as well. In terms of accolades and in terms of national ranking, I was a much better swimmer than him. He could kick my butt any day of the week without trying.
Okay. I just think, Ms. Robinson, I'm trying to understand where you're coming from. I think you lose a lot of credibility when you don't concede that a biological male has physical advantages over a biological female. I mean, I just think that's a proven fact, and you really hurt your credibility. I understand you want the world to be a better place. I do too, and I don't think people ought to be discriminated against because of an immutable characteristic. I don't. And I think that I think everybody ought to be free to be themselves. And what you do in your bedroom or what I do in my bedroom with a consenting adult is nobody's business. But if what I do in my bedroom with a consenting adult, if I decide I want to tell somebody's child about it, then other people have rights too. And I think parents have rights. And I think biological females have rights to be able to compete fairly in sport, in sports. So I really think you hurt your credibility when you refuse to acknowledge that biological males have an advantage over biological females. It kind of makes me wonder about all your testimony. Thank you, Mr.
Senator
Chairman.
Kennedy. I'm sorry, go ahead.
What I'm trying to say is that there is not a definitive advantage in all cases. Sir, I don't know if you believe that you could beat Serena Williams in tennis, but I probably think that that's not the case. There are not all cases where all men are physically superior to all women. And at the end of the day, in this conversation, we're not talking about that. We're talking about trans women who are, in fact, women, who deserve to play in a gender that matches their sports, who deserve all the benefits that Ms. Gaines is talking about. And as a cisgender black woman, I can say definitively that my womanhood is not threatened by a transgender person asserting hers as well.
Senator Hirono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank all of the persons who are testifying today. For Ms. Robinson, do you know what...
Let's break this down. Senator Kennedy starts off calm, respectful, and straight to the point. He simply asks Ms. Robinson whether there are two sexes and more than two genders. Instead of a clear answer, what follows is a tangle of academic buzzwords and evasions. Ms. Robinson refuses to say there are two sexes. She says there's male, female, and intersex. Then when asked how many genders there are, she claims the number is infinite. Yes, infinite. According to her, gender is expansive, evolving, and entirely up to self-expression. This is where Kennedy, representing millions of Americans who still believe in biological reality, presses for clarity. He points out that a newborn baby is either male or female, and that's not up for debate. Biology is not a social construct. When Kennedy shifts to the topic of sports, things get even clearer. He asks whether biological males have physical advantages over females in athletics. Ms. Robinson dodges again, saying not in all cases, and tries to offer exceptions. But the reality is undeniable. Male physiology gives advantages in strength, speed, and endurance. That's why we have women's sports to begin with. Kennedy doesn't attack her personally. He simply says refusing to acknowledge obvious biological differences hurts her credibility. And he's absolutely right. When someone can't admit a basic scientific truth, how can we take their testimony seriously on policy that affects fairness, safety, and women's opportunities? He goes on to remind the committee that he believes in freedom and equality. No one should be discriminated against for who they are. But that freedom doesn't mean ignoring biological truth or erasing women's rights. Parents have rights. Female athletes have rights. Society has the right to protect fairness. Ms. Robinson ends by saying that trans women are women and that her own womanhood isn't threatened by that. But this isn't about feelings. It's about facts. It's about whether biological males should be allowed to compete against biological females in sports designed for women. And that's the heart of the issue. When ideology replaces truth, fairness dies. When feelings override facts, women lose. Senator Kennedy stood up for reality, for fairness, and for every American who's tired of being told to deny what their own eyes can see. If you believe that truth still matters, that biology isn't bigotry, and that fairness in sports must be protected, then stand with us. Like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more unapologetic commentary defending America's values, truth, freedom, and common sense. Because at the end of the day, science doesn't bend to ideology, and neither should we.